The spacing for the turn fin bracket is incorrect in the short kit. So I filed it out, positioned this drill bit in the hole. Got a tape dam on this side. Stood it upright, filled it with epoxy. Pretty sure I can twist that drill out now with pliers. And so therefore, the spacing is not correct on either one of these nut plates. So what I've done is took two of the longer ones and I cut them with an offset. And I'll stack them and epoxy them together. Use that to get the right spacing on this turn fin bracket. Camber it out with a little bit of a twist with pliers. Now I got a nice fit on my turn fin bracket on my hole pattern. Got a nice clean fill with epoxy. I like doing things nice and neat like that. To be fair, I ordered the micro turn fin from Offshore Electrics. I know the turn fin bracket that Dr. Jet sent to Big B from Ironclad RC had this corner ground off. Maybe it was a different turn fin. I think he mentioned where it came from, different source. But when I line up my non-trip nice and straight, putting it up against these laser cut formers with this turn fin bracket from Offshore Electrics, it clears the aft non-trip. Just the whole pattern was different, so got that issue resolved easily enough. Pretty sure with that interlock like that, it's not going anywhere. There's the nut plates glued in for the rudder and the strut. Got everything mounted. Also mounted the turn fin, curved turn fin. Just checking everything out. So all this hardware is from Offshore Electrics, and it's what they call their micro rudder, micro strut, micro turn fin, even though Dr. Jet says this is a mini haul, not a micro. But that's what Offshore Electrics calls this hardware. That's where I got it all from. Beautiful hardware. Love the fit on laser cut wood. I got the inside of the hull sealed with thinned epoxy. I glued the motor mount in first and the servo mount. Here's a little tweak I did on the servo mount. Give it a straight shot to the rudder. So I've just slightly angled it before I glued it down. It's still engaged in this tab here, but I angled the servo mount. So that's going to be just straight to the rudder. Using my Zip Kit's hot wire cutter, cutting this foam, put flotation in the boat. Just eyeballing it, trial and error. A little more off, follow the curve of the top deck. Touch more back here. So I mean by trial and error, just keep cutting it until it fits. A little magic here. Coming out pretty nice, actually. All right, let's weigh the foam. Boat is weighing in at 96 grams right now. And with the foam, 102 grams. For all my glue joints, I've used super glue, medium CA, and I only put enough in a joint to fill it. I don't build up fillets with the CA. You can see after I put the finishing epoxy down, even though it was thin, got some small fillets in the corners. And that's all I want. You can see it pretty good in the light right there, catching the fillets in the corners. It'll add strength, that fillet. And I did use a little bit of accelerator, but I keep that to a minimum. I think if you hit it with accelerator too much, you can see how it fires, turns kind of chalky white. I think it gets really brittle and it's weaker. I use it like putting the bottom ride pads on. I would just like wrap this around here in the corner and just put a little bit of super glue right on the corner there, and then hit it with kicker just so it would hold. Otherwise I minimize the amount that I use it just for strength purposes. I have one coat of epoxy, thinned epoxy, seal in the hull. That's all I'm going to put on it. It is sealed. Used a bent brush, got up underneath everywhere, and that's all I'm putting on there. Keep the weight to a minimum. So here's the glues I used. Used a 15-minute epoxy to fill the hole on the term fin that I had to file out and move a little bit. Medium CA, a little bit of kicker. Everywhere I laminated any wood. So I laminated this doubler right here on the back of the sponson for the turn fin. Laminated the transom on, and I laminated these chine rail formers. Those are 2 pieces of 64th plywood, birch plywood, and also the bottom of the sponsons, ride pads. I laminated using Titebond 3. Very strong and 100% waterproof. And then here's my finishing epoxy. Use what's called a finishing epoxy, not just any kind of epoxy. So I thin it with denatured alcohol. But use a finishing epoxy because it is resistant to ultraviolet light when it won't turn yellow.